What's going on, guys? It's Frito here. Today we're doing a big tank guide covering multiple tank heroes, but the role in general, talking a lot about the new era of tanking in Season 18 and beyond, but also a lot of matchup knowledge that you're going to find very useful. Starting off, the enemy team here has Queen, 2 poke DPS, projectile at that, and Ana Zen. This is Mauga Nightmare Fuel. And our first example will be showing off some Reinhardt, who I think is a mid-tier tank, don't get me wrong, but is a crucial one for you to learn since how much value can be gained just by having a shield and brawling armor health and high damage. But with the perks update, Ryan has been updated to fit into Overwatch 2 thanks for the almost stadium-esque build synergy you can get. Now, a lot of tank heroes function this way now, where they level up with their perks and then get big play opportunities or really overkill whatever they're good at. The build path that has the most carry potential for Ryan gives you your fire strikes back when you stun an enemy up to 3, and then your major perk increases your attack speed when you hit enemies with fire strike. So what this means is Ryan doesn't have to do anything too fancy to be effective, because as long as he holds his position, works his way up to Earth Shatter, he has his own firepower to be his own follow-up. Always having fire strikes to follow up on the Earth Shatter play by himself, and then also when he gets to the major perk, it starts to get really crazy. Then he'll be devastating on any corner he holds. And that's what you'll see me doing on this new Junk City game. They take the early lead partially because I think my Mauga is hard counterpicked by what they have. And since their team is almost entirely mid-range characters, having a shield at all is a massive advantage. With a combination of the balanced state of the game being pretty good, perks in general being solid, but with some bigger winners and losers, the game is oddly kind of in a very balanced state, but also the matchups are pretty harsh. You can't just pick anything nowadays. And the gaps and variance between hero styles is kind of incredible. Like, think of it this way. In previous versions of Overwatch, we probably would have said Ana Zen would be a nightmare for Ryan to play into. But because he has a shield into fire strike style of play now, he's actually one of the better options against the enemy's comp, especially since we have a Wu Yang. And while Wu Yang's damage can be high, it's very inconsistent, as opposed to Ana Zen, who have cooldowns that just nuke something. And so it's very important in this type of matchup for your team not to get nuked as it tries to close the distance. Then hard engage with the Wu Yang ultimate. Playing corners as Reinhardt with a whole bunch of armor health and a shield, it's a menace for him to get cleared. But especially just with what's popular in the game right now, he's one of the more survivable tanks. Keep in mind as well, they did have that perk where he got more overhealth with Pin, but since you don't even have that kind of perk in your arsenal, the perks this season are about Fire Strike, you can play a defensive, almost bunker-esque style of play, holding corners and engaging in when things are low, which is kind of similar to the way that Junker Queen would play, who pokes for an advantage and closes the distance when they have one. That's more or less what you'll do with Ryan now, but his poke phase is just emboldened by his shield. And there's a lot of poke characters that are very popular. And honestly, I have seen it time and time again where Ryan just managing and regenerating his shield works wonders against enemy teams. They take so long to clear him. And what ends up happening oftentimes is that someone on the enemy team gets impatient with how long that can take, and then you'll have something out of position for you and your team to punish. I don't think Ryan is the best Season 18 tank. However, he is playable when you realize that with the Fire Strike upgrade, he's kind of emboldened to be similar to the Wu Yang meta. Wu Yang doesn't have a ton of resources to give you. He has a limited heal and a heal amp. Once that's gone, you got 0. So you don't want to brawl, you want to control, and then hard engage with resources. Hold corners, be expensive to clear, because remember, the longer that the game is going and they're struggling to get into space, your Wu Yang is kind of like a Junkrat. He's chipping away with them over time, and you want that to be your advantage rather than just running at the enemy's front line, trying to brawl it up. You're looking to AFK till you have Earth Shatter or the Wu Yang ult on you, and simply just holding the shield in front for your team to be able to use it. Not too forward on your own island, rushing it on your own, but literally with your team, ideally. Denying a corner, and then pop off with almost a rampage style ability once you get your Fire Strike upgrade on the major perk. Now, the tank that I think was the epitome of the MOBA style tank, even from the last iteration of the perks, is Mauga. Here's a match where I'm going to stay on the pick this time, despite it going going poorly to start, knowing that I'm farming up about as much as I can. And I say farming because now that there's a MOBA element to the game, there is a separate objective that you're playing for, especially as the tank role nowadays, other than the objective itself. So the early part of this game is not going well. They have a big lead against us, but I'm kind of going to barely focus on the objective, only to the degree that I can use it to block for myself, create cover, or create a better engagement. The reason why is because my goal is to get my perk 3 as fast as possible, because then when Overrun gets Ignite, I'm able to go in hard at things that used to take forever to kill, will now have a really insane time to kill on them. Slamming on an enemy as Mauga can sometimes be incredibly inconsistent, and Mauga's damage can feel slower and less reliable than even a Winston. But once he gets the Ignite perk, everything changes when the Fire Nation attacks. So your goal should be to not lose the early 5 minutes of the game, but instead farm almost as if you're playing jungle in a MOBA game. As in, get in positions that are going to be effective for you to fight, be ready to go back to health packs, not the objective, and playing the first round that way made the second round a lot easier. And, well, my game plan is kind of the same anyway, especially because I'm up against Hazard. There's a lot of tanks in the game now that have frontal blocks that are really obnoxious to deal with, and they become an issue because a lot of other tanks struggle to get behind them. There's only a few that can do so and survive. Wrecking Ball and Mauga, I would say, would be the two, mainly because they both have a huge sustain button and high mobility horizontally, so they can cross distance on the map really, really fast. There's a lot of tank heroes when you play them up against these perma block tanks, and they're always blocking from the front, be it Ramattra or even the Reinhardt like we talked about, and you don't know what to do. Like that enemy queen on the Dujunk City game kind of couldn't do a whole lot because Rein's armor health and shield thins out what she can do a lot, but you might as well put a Ramattra there, Hazard, Doomfist sometimes, his block can get a lot of value. Having a hero in your hero pool that can play the enemy's backline, be it Wrecking Ball or Mauga, is going to really help and advance your gameplay. And the reason why I like Mauga the best is that the counters that typically can come out, like Brigitte and Ana, get countered by the Overrun Ignite perk. And that's where your tanking gameplay turns into a MOBA affair, because you're not just racing to get more objective points, you're racing to get that perk, which is going to take over the game for you. And then you can do things like base race, where the enemy tank might be going at your team, but slamming on something that is already lit once you land are some of the easiest kills I've ever got in Overwatch 2. There's a lot of tanks that try to emulate this hard engage playstyle that Mauga has, Doomfist, Hazard, etc. And I think a lot of them are worthwhile to learn, but I find Mauga to be the easiest. I can do a complete separate mastery guide on Mauga because he's probably my best hero, but at least for this section, just note that there are tank heroes like this that play to unlock their perk as a primary source of their mini objective, as opposed to the real objective. So especially on modes like push or control, since you can literally lose an entire point and it not matter, remember that death matching to carry is what you're looking to do. Lots of tank heroes do this now, whether it's Queen, who gets all her cooldowns back on her ultimate, or Zarya can get charged from her ult fire. Getting to your key perk and then playing the objective is kind of what you want to do. Mauga, Doomfist, and Ball, I think, do this the best because they have the most insane mobility, and your goal is to find engagements that are favorable to you and your team as early as possible. And the reason you do that is if you don't, and they go a tank like Reinhardt and you just fight them from the front, well, then all the blocking soaks it all up, right? You're looking to flank, isolate, or hard engage into the back wherever possible. One more tank that's a bit of a middle ground, which is why he got nerfed so hard in this recent patch, is Ramattra. Because he has a DPS upgrade on his major perk where Ravenous Vortex can do a burst of damage. Keep in mind, they also nerfed it a little bit, so the horizontal momentum no longer gets slowed, but either way, the upgrade with the perk is so nuts that you can kind of expect Ram to take over the game in a similar way, at least when you hit it effectively against squishies. One of the best targets, I'd say, is Batiste, who loses his ability to use his exo boots. But similarly, Ram can feel like he's lacking offense until that point of the game. And now we'll start to talk a little bit more about matchups. Here, we're against two shotguns and a diva. So early game, this is kind of tough for me. because while my block can get a lot of value, that doesn't tend to carry a game from a tank position. Like, I could be walking into block against the shotguns, but generally you're going to have to find ways to get eliminations to win games in Overwatch. And also, if you're focusing on blocking, you're not getting your perk, importantly. But early on in this game, they are able to make it quite brawly. And in fact, in the moments that I was probably focusing on the objective too much is why I ended up dying, making this round not as effective as it could have been. But we brawl it up enough to make round 1 close, and so I'll be getting up to my tier 3 perk by the time we get to round 2. And just kind of sadly here at the end, I mean, they toss a rally nano at the point. I mean, we have to contest. I probably should let the point flip and come back. I don't know. But importantly, I went 12-3 and nearly have my major perk. Going on to the next rounds, this is where I use Ram to leverage my benefit up against the Diva, because Nemesis, importantly, goes through Defense Matrix, and it goes through Brig Shield. So while Diva does get scary herself once she gets up to tier 3, she's making the mistake of being too close to me, because Diva is not a brawl tank, so most brawl tanks will win in close range against her, particularly ones that have melee or beams. Most forget that Ram and Rein also go through Defense Matrix and do a ton of damage. It's this next round that kind of reminds me why I love Overwatch 2 so much right now. There's just so many maps and matchup variety every single game. Now we're on Well, and the enemy swaps their tank to Hog. So I'm going to stay away from the insta-kill Hog hole, even if I lose the objective, because I like living. And remembering the way that the perks meta works, I'm trying to find opportunities to lock down a squishy with my snare and corral a rush into the backline. Ana Zen is kind of a hard counter to Ram, honestly, so this makes it a little bit difficult to find the lane. Even if I hit a good snare, I don't want to go because their cooldowns can destroy me. But working my way up to the ultimate, I fight into the backline, get them down, and the rest of the round's going to be easy from this point, to be honest. Also note that on the control game mode, I found that the extending Nemesis perk is really good, mainly because there's not as much long-range lines of sight to use your staff anyway. The staff upgrade is really good, but getting an extra second on your Nemesis form, or multiple even, more than a DPS increase just gives you an opportunity to continue moving that 20% faster. That's the thing that I noticed the most. Control maps are really small, and Ram can keep the gas pedal down and stay in with that extra armor health and keep chasing and repositioning. It's super obnoxious. A subtle buff on a subtle perk, but Ram is just such a good Overwatch 2 hero that even with some pretty significant nerfs, he's still pretty solid this season and plays like a halfway point between the pure MOBA style carry tanks, because he's got a bit of that, but also has some of that frontal blocking presence to make him really easy to play around when you play him in the front. One more Ramattra Ilios game for you. This one we're going to focus on attack angles. I come out of spawn with a team that's full rush, no poke damage at all, so I'm going to be pinging that we're attacking from the left side deep onto their side. We have Symmetra and Reaper. This is a Widow map. We didn't ban Widow, and the enemy is going to have mid-range damage, Hanzo and Cassidy. Playing on their side of the map right away shortens the angles that we're going to be playing from, and now, similar to how I did as Reinhardt up against the poke characters there, we're just going to punish these from walking in and only be giving them short angles to fight on. While Hanzo could always get a good shot from medium to close range, there's no stopping that, but you have the best chance to shoot back at him if he's at your effective distance. So on this round, in order to make space for my close range damage dealers, I'm going to stay out of line of sight of those long range angles so that the enemy poke isn't going to free poke me down, and then commit onto short range angles, which is to say like around corners and stuff, so that they have to walk and clear into me. Assuming that my Reaper and Sim know how to play their characters, they'll already be doing that anyway. And that's the thing that I want to point about Tank now in Season 18, because the game is pretty wide open and has very odd power spikes. As in, different heroes get stronger at different times in the game, and while everything is pretty playable, there is definitely a huge hierarchy in picks. That means if you've got some weak picks on your team that aren't going to be as flexible, let's say, you really have to engage entirely in their wheelhouse to have a chance right now, because there's just such a big gap in some of the heroes' performance. I'm pretty confident in saying that we're in kind of a poke control style meta for two reasons. One, that's what Wu Yang is. Does the poke thing, runs away deep, hard engages in deep. Those are the options, right? But there's also lots of heroes whose perks have kind of enabled to do that exact thing, whether it's Ryan's Fire Strikes or Zarya getting charged from ult fire. Like, these types of things are being enabled just with what perks are in play right now. So because of that, there's heroes that are maybe kind of middle in the road of what they do, like Juno, for example, I think is like not useful as a pick most of the time. At least not in comparison to the crazy other things that other supports are doing. And also because, well, running in too fast makes it kind of easy for poke to crossfire you. So just rushing in like an idiot isn't exactly what works right now. Because if you think about it, there's so many perks that are so strong that if you play that brazenly, somebody's going to have something that they can instantly destroy you with. Like Bastion's got 3 nades right now, okay? Like each individual character is too robust to be an easy dive character call out. And so you have to be playing the macro game a lot, which also yields to this being like a team comp dependent meta quite a bit. Now, thankfully, because 5v5, the map's open, like you can always frag and overcome what I'm saying. But as far as comp strategy, I think we're going to know that if there's more perk power in a given season, we're going to expect that to mean that hero selection and team comps having good matchups is going to be paramount. Then also, I think there's an aspect to this that they've changed so many things in season 18 that a lot of players don't really know how to deal with everything. So not only do we have a lot of heroes right now, they've all got a lot of perks and we haven't even mastered them yet. So this game on Lighthouse, it's a little bit more complicated than just saying Winston counters Zarya. It's more like the positioning I could get to more reliably combined with my Ana. Importantly, because, well, Zarya can get super jump and be a dive tank, kinda, right? That's just the way perks work. Now let's expand a little more on Winston and what he's doing nowadays. Just like we spoke about the beauty of having a barrier on Reinhardt, Winston's bubble is the core of his kit still, mainly because his perks suck, okay? You can throw the bubble at a side arm now with your minor perk, and this is maybe the most useless thing I've ever heard of. In theory, you can do so in order to block, I don't know, Roadhog from hooking you as you're flying through the sky, but that's such a marginal play. I'm just going to say just take the Primal Rage damage always. His major perks are decent. Heal yourself in your bubble or chain lightning on your ult fire. I mostly use the ult fire because I enjoy that. A bit of healing can help too. It kind of doesn't matter. The point is, Winston is the perfect dive tank. But again, mainly if you have a teammate that wants to go in with you and is going to make use of the mobile cover you're putting down. In this case, I have a Genji on Hollywood. So what I'm looking to do is clear through the high ground positions in order to funnel the enemy slowly over time with the priority of marking the threats, unless there's a support I could actually kill. So a bunch of them you can't. So don't make a common mistake of chasing a Moira around for too long. But importantly, getting in line of sight of your supports. Again, these armor health tanks are looking pretty good right now. They did tweak armor in the patch, but importantly, they fixed the block bug that was making block way too good with armor. So Rein and Winston having armor is now kind of one of the more durable options in the game again. Sort of like I think it was supposed to be the whole time. In my tank placements, I always see the enemy hard counter swap to Winston counters, but remember, we're not necessarily playing him in order to kill. Winston, his strength is actually tanking, oddly enough. So even up against quote-unquote counters, the armor and barrier diving in to clear high grounds or create crossfires constantly is what you're looking to do. To some degree, you're looking to actually make space. Draw aggro, be aware of your supports, line of sight, stay in that so you can stay in your armor health. And then you'll be surprised how much work your damage players can do. Because what I see is oftentimes is people try to play these other engaged tanks that aren't Winston, and they'll go in as Doomfist or Hazard or etc. And then they realize tanks aren't that hard to hit. So yes, those picks can carry the game, but the reason why I suggest characters like Wrecking Ball or Mauga is that their defenses and plays, to me anyway, feel a bit easy. You can go really far with picks like Hazard and Doom, but if you just stop overextending and cycle your cooldowns in the positions that take away useful positions from the enemy, you're going to draw out a lot from the enemy team and set up your team with good angles for success. Some heroes that I don't really want to see on my team if I'm Winston. I actually don't love playing with Wu Yang because unlike, let's say, Rein, who's got a shield and a pin, or Mauga, it's a little bit hard to get all the way back to melee range with the Wu Yang, which he kind of needs for the splash to hit. And Wu Yang's gonna stay in the back line or off angle. It's a little hard for him to go in deep with you, whereas there's other picks that maybe are a bit more survivable in the forward position, like Brig or Moira. They're just a bit more brawly and more of a threat, so they can be closer to you. And maybe most importantly of all, I want to see an Ana on my team, because that's the main thing that you make space for with Winston. The more they're fighting you, but you survive, the more lanes she has to hit sleeps and nades. And that's really what's carrying. Winston is the most supportive tank, but still doing good work in Season 18. Because I have no soul, I did go Orisa on this placement game of Hollywood. Because I'm not going to play Winston in a tight choke. I think also other medium to short range picks could work. Sigma, Joker Queen maybe, Hog if you want. Ram I like here a lot too, but I think I wanted to try Orisa because she got an upgrade with her perk, which lets her heal during the channel of her ultimate. People have grown to hate Orisa, but I also think the community has no idea what they're doing against her. For better and worse, I think you should try to counter pick her. And if you don't, you're gonna have a bit of a hard time. So what Orisa wants to do, ideally, is be in a close range type fight and crowd control you when you try to go aggressive past her. The bigger the map is, the harder it is for the Orisa to peel for aggression. But in this choke of Hollywood, it's pretty ideal. Another reason I like Orisa in this meta right now is up against the Wu Yang ult. Having 2 channels of Fortify makes Orisa another character on the list that has a way to not fall to the knockdown. I think that's really important. There's a lot of ults that aren't that devastating, even if they hit you. Like in theory, if an Ilyari ult hits you, maybe you just get around cover and maybe you might be fine. With a combination of Wu Yang having incredible mobility himself, but there's plenty of heroes that love to run in with the ult. He can put it on himself or his teammate. Somebody's getting hit by the Wu Yang ult, right? So ideally having characters on your team that have unstoppable, like Queen got her perk to do so, or a shield to block it. If you don't have those things, getting earth shattered by a support ult is going to be team fight winning. So you kind of need a way to deal with that. But in the meantime here, brawling it up as Orisa in the front. I tend to be pretty conservative on most heroes with their cooldown usage, but Orisa is one that I spam a little bit more than my other characters, mainly because she's a bit rare in that she has 2 defensive cooldowns she can use. And then her ult kind of steals away a third one with the Fortify and Self-Heal. So because of that on Orisa, I sort of actively use the Spinny Spear to block projectiles for my team if I don't need to reposition, which gives a bit of a budget version of a frontal block that so many of the tanks have nowadays. We mentioned him a few times, so let's show a positive example of Wrecking Ball. My mechanics on this pick are lacking here. I'm pretty rusty, and I'm certainly not getting enough good pile drivers off, as many as I could, but here we can see just how far basic engage knowledge can go with being a nightmare for the enemy team. I'm going to do something here on ball that I feel a lot of ball players struggle with, and that is actively tanking for my team. This game, I'm weak on the offense, but I'm very good at timing my engages, rolling through the enemy, getting a big adaptive shield, and drawing aggro on me. The time that I want to do that is when my team is already fighting. So I'm going to hard engage or fully roll in, going in deep, getting a money adaptive shield, and then holding my ground, fighting, hoping they fight me. And this is the issue with a lot of players going up against Wrecking Ball, is that if they do not have the counter picks against Ball that could do enough damage fast enough, they put lots of damage into his massive health point shield, use everything they got, and then he rolls away. Because Grapple is on a low cooldown, he can swing in and be ready to swing out, usually by the time that the shield has been whittled down. In the meantime, I'm kind of just watching the ult advantage. Try to backcap with mines. The Torb would have gotten blocked, but gets pulled out of it. They pop a bunch of ults, so I just roll out, looking to get a health pack, my favorite thing to do as these hard engaged tanks. Between keeping a keen eye on the kill feed, as well as just watching if my team are peeking the enemy or not, I'm trying to look for opportunities to have enough players to be fighting in at the same time to go, but as well, just always remembering to have my shield whenever I go in and go in hard enough to get a big one. The more they're shooting at me, it's just another version of having a big shield and barrier in the way. It's actually kind of funny how effective this is, in my opinion. One of the major ways to counter Wrecking Ball in this way is, yes, you could stack a bunch of CCs if you can hit him, but his bigger weakness is his lack of peeling. The faster the enemy goes aggressive against my team, the harder my job gets just rolling around in circles, creating value that way. On the next round, they look to commit to playing even slower, this time with a Reinhardt, which is the worst possible thing they could do. A rushdown Rein, maybe, again, make the ball peel, but they kind of just play as if they're playing a poke matchup. And while they do have poke heroes, Ball, as a hard engaged character, is going to be one of the best counters against that. So if we're talking about tracking down a Juno, there's no better character than Ball. Lifeweaver and Wu Yang, I think, are a little stronger right now, but they are just as flimsy as Juno when Ball gets right on top of them, or fighting anything that's isolated off on its own. So the way this enemy team would be better is if they all rushed in hard against targets on my side that are more vulnerable. I am not one of them, because I can roll away with 1,000 health whenever I want. Now remember, part of the reason this is a success is because I'm not focusing the Rein shield. We've got a Symmetra, which focuses Rein shield, but I'm looking to hard engage at squishies. In our Rein example, we were against a Junker Queen that mostly fought us. The same thing can happen if a Hazard or Doomfist is focusing the Rein. Big mistake. Especially when we look at the math of the team comps involved, right? While Rein's shield is good against my 4 squishies, they're all getting angles. Lucio Curie is the high-powered, ranged firepower backline. Something we don't really talk about enough is just how important that support picks are to the frontline matchup. If you look at my whole comp, who is Rein gonna rush down? Because Lucio Curie isn't it. He needs something that he's going to brawl out, because then the Lucio Curie's low healing numbers is gonna look weak. But if Wrecking Ball is playing around health packs and his big spikes of extra health from Adaptive Shield, Rein doesn't have that play. So you can pump all the healing you want into the Rein. The matchup is kind of doomed to fail. Wu Yang needs something to hard engage to get value out of him. The Moira could kind of work if the Rein all ins, but then they have poke DPS that aren't going in with it. They kind of just don't have a comp. And I've seen a lot of games so far this season where players aren't really committing to a strategy together. And it's much more detrimental this season than previous ones, mainly because we have a new support that's like mixing up the metagame in a big way. In previous seasons, it felt like it was so DPS centered that even if you had, I don't know, Iliari, Mercy, well, I don't know, they would just go off angle and the tank battle was irrelevant. Now the tank battle is very relevant, mainly because the perks are so powerful, but how you interact with it directly is going to, based on how the support picks are manipulating the matchup. Here's an opposite example for you now. This time I'm going to be playing Winston up against Wrecking Ball, and this is going to be one of the easiest Gibraltar full holds of my career, because the way to counter Ball, of course, is to force him to peel, and because the ball never targets me, which you might think sounds weird, like why would the Wrecking Ball counter or attack the enemy Winston? Well, if the ball doesn't get his team in, he needs to go kill on his own. And is Ball good at that? I don't know. I landed like 2 pile drivers that entire Li Jiang. I didn't need to even get a kill, really. I just tanked and won the game, right? So if Ball goes at my backline, but I, playing Winston, the very easy tanking kind of frontline dive tank, the enemy kind of can't clear me with my established healers looking at me, and I'll just sit on cart and in the front line the whole game. While it's difficult for Winston to go confirm kills aggressively up against the Wu Yang who's running away in circles, heal amping himself or skating away and super jumping, you don't need to kill anything. You just hold the cart, force him to clear you. Same thing as the Rein example, put the tank in the choke, put the tank on the cart. And if something steps out, then you dive it. This Winston game can be summarized as hold a cover position and punish the flanker. That's pretty much it. I beat this Genji not by going at him hard, but by being ready for him when he wants to go in. Simple numbers advantage. If the enemy backline can't clear you, it's pretty rare that your backliners with the healers set up are going to struggle to survive up against only a couple of them. And we make that easier for them to know that they can defend themselves if we use our bubble as our primary engage tool. Just like Mauga's shout, just like Wrecking Ball's adaptive shield, only take damage when you've got it. And you don't need to take damage, really. Absorbing it with your barrier in between you pathing towards either the objective or power positions on the map, that's all you got to worry about. This enemy team gets so flustered by the Winston, they go Reaper Bastion. But the thing is, those only beat Winston if he over-aggresses into them. There's so many players that their entire DPS game plan is just shooting overly aggressive tanks. And an easy way to win is by not being one. The Overwatch 2 tanks have very self-sufficient gameplay loops where their cooldown cycles are built to be used for them to survive basically indefinitely. So manage your cooldowns, let your blocks and barriers take the damage, and use everything else to get away. Another clip for you, because I don't have a soul, I play Mauga and force the enemy to counterpick me on that as well. Cap 3 points, the enemy team's in shambles. They're going to try to counter the Mauga by mirroring it and going Bastion. I don't want to mess with that noise, so we're going to show you another example of simply holding position, being expensive to clear on cover, being incredibly valuable. Try to keep in mind, I'm not that high ranked, but somewhere between Masters 2 and GM is top 500. So anywhere in Masters is pretty high up these days in Overwatch 2. So the mistakes that we are making look very silly with just some basic fundamentals, they're going to be in your games just about no matter what rank you're in. Now, here on the Streets phase, I intentionally pick Winston up against Mauga Reaper, mainly because it's just the spot of the map that I think I can use Winston best. I love Winston on Streets phase. Now they pop multiple ults to clear me there, and maybe jumping back to my window could have been enough in theory if another shot or two was hit, but it doesn't even matter. I'm so expensive holding cover there that they have to turn and pop all their ults to clear me that my high ground advantage is never lost. And that's really what matters at the end of the day. We got Bap, Ana, Ashe on the high ground. If we think of the strategy of the game, the more that the enemy invests in anti-Winston characters, and I don't give them the engage that's going to make me easy to die, it'll be very easy for my teammates to keep me up, and we'll just burn the enemy's clock down. Even getting Nano, I'm not really looking to kill them here. I'll just survive. My job is to cycle my tanking on the front line and slow them down. That's it. Some of my mechanics in this video are truly god-awful. This Winston Primal Rage is maybe one of my worst of all time, but we do move the Ana so far from the Mauga that he's able to fall. And try to look in a lot of these cases when my teammates are getting kills, how many of the enemy are looking at me instead of the thing that's actually doing the work. While there's lots of higher level Winston tactics I could discuss with you, as you can tell today, in a poke control style meta, we're going to use cover, bubble when they commit, and run away when I'm low. We're looking to use jump to jump away to safety, kind of like you would imagine Mauga running all the way back to his Wu Yang to get healed. It's the same kind of meta principle, especially up against counters. There's no point to jump in aggressively against the counter. And we could use this cover playing frontline tank playstyle with other heroes as well. Hazard Doom, similar move set. Diva probably, but even low ground Brawler tanks you could imagine would be able to hold here for a while. The only thing that changes is how well they're going to be able to get back to their team when the enemy starts to expend resources to clear you. Okay. I think that's all the archetypes that are going to be most important in Season 18. We've got the RPG carry style tank that want to play aggressively to fight to get their perk. That's going to transform their gameplay. I'll have more videos on other tanks as well, but we can put Queen, Zarya, Mauga in there, and a little bit of Ryan and Ram, although I think they fit a little bit more in the traditional main tank of style, which is where I put Winston entirely. Winston's perks are basically useless. His fighting is terrible, but he's got the best durability in a way, because his bubble can block lots of things that a simple block cannot. Not only entirely stopping those Ana-nades or Sombra hacks or whatever debuffs they have from hitting you, but also blocking line of sight from the enemy to hit your team. In a poke control style meta, those shields are incredibly strong, because your poke having one means they'll more easily and more likely just straight up win their poke trade. So set those shields in front of them to succeed. That's everything for this video for now, but let me know in the comment section down below what parts of tanking you're still struggling with. You can send in replay codes into our Season 18 replay code submission form, linked in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when my videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. I'll see you guys next time.